Welcome to the channel. I'm going to try something a little bit different today. I'm going to make a short video as opposed to one of my 2 or 3 hour sagas. And this is the wall of my studio. I've got a piece of cardboard attached to the wall and pictures of some of my favorite painters. Like, they're mostly postcards that I picked up you know, at shows or at museums, or else sometimes I'll clip a painting or a picture of a painting out of a magazine or a catalog, and I stick them on this board to just to remind me of what a good painting is supposed to look like and give me a little inspiration. So anyway, I'll go through the pictures. I don't know if I'll do all of them, but I'll do most of them and talk a little bit about them, why I like this particular painter and what there is about the painting that I find interesting, and so forth. Let's get started. Should I just go, maybe I'll just go from left to right and then down or something like that. So this is a drawing of Picasso. I think it was probably done in the 20s when he went through one of his many phases, the neoclassical phase. Did some really beautiful paintings and drawings at that time. Here's another one, yeah, right over here actually. And that same kind of style, did these kind of huge women, and he was just an incredible draftsman. I just love the way he drew, and there's an energy, you know, in the paintings, and for me that's always the key thing, to apply some sort of energy to the work. Okay, so next to the Picasso is, this is a painting by Alice Neel. The subject is Frank O'Hara, who was a poet in New York. I think this painting was done in the 50s. Alice Neel was born in 1900, lived to be about 85 or so, and of course she had the usual problem of selling paintings that we all do. I have another painting of Alice Neel's. I don't know who this woman was, a friend of hers. I don't know what her name was. I should have looked it up, but you know, when I first started painting, I stumbled across a book of Alice Neel's paintings, and I really thought it was great, and there was something about it that was kind of what I had in mind to paint. This was the kind of paintings that I would like to do. That's what I thought when I was looking through that book. And but she always painted through all the ups and downs, and you know, always had a gallery and had some shows, and from time to time would sell a painting, but never really was able to make a living at it, and usually for the most part depended on her family and whatever man she was living with at the time, you know, to help her out. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Yeah, she had her problems with men, you know, like most brilliant women, or many brilliant women. You know, when it came to men, her instincts failed her. Yeah, she had 2 kids. She married early to some Cuban musician, I think he was, and but he didn't stick around long and went back to Cuba. And it was at that point that she got involved with the love of her life, Harry. I think his name was Harry, the communist slash activist slash socialist type, and the intellectual bullshit artist type, you know, with the smooth line that she was always a sucker for. So he also liked to drink, and become abusive. But it went on for years, and let's see, I think one night he came home drunk and in a rage over some lame encounter and decided to take it out on some of her paintings. He took a mat knife and slashed to pieces a whole bunch of her paintings. So she thought it over and decided not to stab him to death in the middle of the night, but just to throw him out. Love is blind, what can I tell you? So, you know, she was quite prolific, and her family still owns a bunch of paintings. And I think one came up for auction a few years ago and sold for $800,000. So anyway, let's move on. This is an artist, his name is Gronk. He's Latino. Many years ago there was a great show at LA County Museum, artists of Latin America, and this was one of the paintings in it. I think it's called Cabin Fever. I don't know why that title, but anyway, that's one of my favorite paintings. It's really cool. Let's see, what's next? This is a painting by Pontormo, Renaissance, 17th century. This was at the Getty. You know, the Getty originally, J. Paul Getty was a great collector, and originally he had a museum out in Malibu. It was his estate, and then when he died, they turned it into a museum. But then they built another museum in Brentwood, in Los Angeles, designed by Richard Meyer. I remember when that was that must be about 20 years now, 25 years now. Beautiful, huge, the classic postmodern style. But it was a beautiful building, and it only cost $1 billion. And I think what happened was, I don't know, I'm just speculating on this, but they spent so much money on the museum, they had no money left to buy any paintings. And the original collection that they had moved from the Getty Estate in Malibu, that was a huge collection, but it's not, it's not really a first-rate collection. There's a lot of well-known painters, but not their best work. But anyway, they did buy this painting, which I'd seen before in the books, and I always loved that painting. So if you ever get to the Getty, you can check this one out. This is a woman. I have two paintings of hers. Here's the other one. Her name is Francesca Schifrin. I went to a big art show at the Los Angeles Convention Center, and there was a gallery there. They were showing some of her paintings. She lives in the East. I think she lives in Connecticut or something. She's still around. But they were showing. They had some of her. They were representing her. It was a Los Angeles gallery, and I think this painting must have been one of them. I just thought it was great. And let's see if I can get a little closer in there. I just love the way she draws, and her the brush strokes and so forth. And then here's another one. She spent a lot of time in the Caribbean, in Haiti. She used to go down there. I don't know. She just loved that culture, and did a lot of paintings of local people. It's another one. Her paintings. I was tempted to buy a painting one time. I could have bought one of her paintings for $2,000. I just didn't have the money at the time. It was pretty cheap, actually. But that's a good example of a woman who's really or an artist who's really terrific, and she's struggling. She's happy to get $2,000 she's happy to get $2,000 for her painting, and but it's only $1,000 really, because the gallery takes 50%. So, but I think she's still around, still painting. Let's see. Let's do this one next. This is a painting by David Park. David Park was part of a group of painters in the 50s, the San Francisco Figurative Painters. There was David Park. Richard Diebenkorn was a part of that group before he got into abstract painting, and also this is a painting by Elmer Bischoff, who was a member of that group. I have the catalog, it's great. There was David Park, Diebenkorn, Elmer Bischoff, painter named Nathan Oliveira, and there was a woman, Joan Brown, was it Joan Brown? And then a couple of other people. Terrific group. They all worked and lived in the Bay Area, and David Park taught for a while at, David Park started out in the 40s painting in the figurative style. There was a movement at that time in the 30s and 40s, it was called social realism, and it was kind of a quiet type style generally, and but at some point he got interested in abstract expressionism, which was getting started in the early 40s in New York. It was all the vogue then, and he decided to take a crack at that style, which he did for a few years, but then at some point he decided it wasn't really his style and decided to switch back to the figure. But when he did go back to the figure, he kind of combined some of the techniques that he had been fooling around with as an abstract type painter, and this painting is a result. You know, it's kind of a synthesis of the two styles, and it was, nobody had ever seen anything like this before. You know, Elmer Bischoff came into his studio one day and took a look at one of these paintings, and he says, "What the hell is this?" But he stuck with it. You know, he decided that he liked it, and you know, of course, all these people struggled to sell their work, and most of them wound up teaching. You know, of course, thank God for teaching. David Park was fond of saying that he was a recipient of a Lydia Park Fellowship, you know, his wife. And he died young, at, I think it was 52. And of course, what usually happens when a painter dies is the prices immediately go through the roof. And the David Park painting that came up for auction, I forget when it was, I think it sold for $4 million. So, be a painter, what can I tell you? That's a painting by Dufy, Raoul Dufy. You know, French in the 20s. He was contemporary with Matisse, people like that, Soutine. I forget where I picked this up, but I liked it. All right. Oh, okay. I don't know how much you can see of this one. This is Lucian Freud. Lucian Freud was actually the grandson of Sigmund Freud. He was born in Germany, but grew up in England. And he died about 10 years ago. I saw this very painting at LA County, it was the Museum of Contemporary Art. It was MoCA in Los Angeles, Museum of Contemporary Art. I saw this painting. There was a big Lucian Freud show. And well, Freud started out in the 40s, at the same time that the abstract expressionist movement was in vogue, like David Park and many of the, you know, hotshot art critics jabbering about the figure. It's been painted for 600 years, it was dead, there was nothing left to do with the figure, and it's time to move on to something new, you know, something fresh. But Freud came along and said, actually, I disagree with that. I think the figure is still a valid subject for painting, and I'm going to prove to you why. And he did. He was very successful. You know, his paintings sold immediately. The critics reversed their position, and It's hard not to, whether you love Lucian Freud painting or not, the one, or hate it, you know, whether you love it or hate it, the one thing you can't do is not look at it. They're just they're like, what's the word I'm looking for? They're prodigious or something like that, you know. The left. This is one of my favorite paintings, actually. I love this painting. This is a painting by Jawlensky. Jawlensky was a member of a group called the Blue Rider Group. This must have been around 1910, 1920 in France. He was Russian, but emigrated to France and lived there the rest of his life. There was, who's in that group? Well, this Jawlensky, Kandinsky was part of that group, and I think Paul Klee was also part of that group. But anyway, very German expressionist feeling to this. I just love the use of the way those two colors go together. The red of the outfit. This is I think this guy was a dancer. This is a man who was a dancer, I think. Forget his name, Alexander something. But the colors, the red and then the blue or bluish green in the background. This painting was he probably knocked out this painting. I'm sure this painting was done in one shot, wet on wet, you know. It gives me that feeling. Probably knocked it out in an hour. I wouldn't be surprised. Knocked out the whole painting in an hour. There's another one of his, you know, right here. This is also Jawlensky, yeah. This one, yeah. Beautiful painting. Again, it looks like, you know, he could have knocked that thing out in one shot. You know, the reason I like the German expressionist painters so much is because they paint by instinct. There's no thinking. They just start drawing and throwing paint down. They paint like a child, you know. And children are natural painters because they have no fear, you know. It's a form of play for them. Picasso said it. I want to paint like a child. This is Max Beckmann. I've talked about him before in some of my videos. He's one of my favorite, if not my favorite painter. Yeah, he did a lot of paintings with musical instruments. I just love the use of, you know, just the way he uses shadows, and his style is just very loose, very spontaneous, it seems to me. But I mean, you know, of course he worked on these paintings very diligently, but there's a nice feeling of freshness and, you know, spontaneity to these paintings. There's another one of his here. That's his wife. Beckmann was in the war, First World War, and actually his paintings can be divided into two styles. The type of painting he was doing before the war, and then the paintings he did immediately, he started doing after the war, and they're hardly recognizable as the same painter. They're so different, you know. Before the war, they were pretty quiet, kind of quiet. They had a lot of energy to them, but it was kind of a quiet, more rigid. It wasn't quite as loose and spontaneous like the ones after the war, such as this painting of his wife. So it's interesting what the transformation and the effect that the war had on him. All right, now this one, this is Otto Dix. This is an interesting painting because, well, first of all, this is a woman, her name was Sylvia Van Harden. She was a journalist, she was a friend of Otto Dix. If you've seen the movie Cabaret, about Berlin in the 20s, the opening scene of that movie is, they're in the nightclub, and the camera kind of moves around the room, shows you various people dancing, drinking, this and that. One point it shows a woman in a red dress in a corner, alone, smoking a cigarette and drinking a cocktail. That image in that film was based on this painting. So let's see, I got another Otto Dix here. Yeah, I got a watercolor. This was some hooker, I guess, he painted. Well, Hitler came to power in 1932, and you know, when he did, everybody had to toe the line, the party line, and artists were no exception. So, of course, Dix was one of the first to come to Hitler's attention, because Dix's interpretation of the human face and figure were not exactly Hitler's idea of a master race type, you know what I'm saying? So at one point the Gestapo paid a visit to his house and said, look, you can continue to paint, but no more faces, okay? Landscapes only. This is a Latino painter, Carlos Almaraz or something like that. He was in that show of Latino artists with Gronk and a whole bunch of other people. He was, he died pretty young. I think he was in his 30s when he died. He was a fantastic painter. I forget what this is called. Latinos are really, they're terrific painters. They have an incredible palette. They really know how to use color, and they can also draw. So, yeah, that was a good show. I remember that show very well. All right. Now, I was in Italy a couple of years ago, and I forget what museum this was at. This is an Italian painter. I think he painted in the 30s and 40s, maybe 50s. Antonio Donghi, D-O-N-G-H-I. Just a fabulous, I just love the way he's got that woman posed. It's very formal, you know, and but the colors, the palette, the shadows, just beautiful. If I could paint like that, I would be a happy dude. Now here, this is a drawing. This guy's name is Rico Lebrun. He was he taught for many years at UCLA. In fact, I took some classes from a guy who studied with Rico Lebrun, and he did a lot of drawing. Not too many paintings. He just loved to draw, black and white, charcoal, you know, that kind of stuff. Just got an incredible, like, energetic style, you know. He just attacks the paper, you know, with the pencil or the charcoal. What's next? I got almost everybody, I think. This is Sargent. What is there to say about Sargent? You know, he was a master, you know. There was a big show at the Metropolitan Museum in New York about 15 years ago. They did a survey of painters from, like, they started with Velázquez. I mean, it was like a 2 or 3 century survey of great portrait painters, and I went to see it. It was a huge, it was an amazing show, and it's always one of my favorite Sargent paintings is called The Daughters of So-and-so, some wealthy New Yorker. He had 3 daughters, young daughters, ages from like around 8 to like 13 or 12, something like that. And they're in this room next to a giant vase. It's always been one of my favorites. It's a huge painting. It's like 7 feet by 7 feet. I always loved that painting. And I went to the show, and I'm going through the various rooms and galleries looking this, that, and the other painter, and all of a sudden I turn the corner and there's that painting, The 3 Daughters of So-and-so. I remember that. It was just phenomenal. So anyway, yeah, Sargent, very successful, never had any problem getting commissions, you know, but I think he said at one time, when he finally had enough money to kind of take it easy, he said, thank God I never have to paint another face for some demanding client. I think that's it. I got them all. What's this one? The bicycle. This is another Italian. I think I saw this at the same show in Rome where I saw the Donghi. I forget this guy's, Marino something? I'm not sure. Anyway, I just liked it. The guy riding a bike. Well, that was a little longer than I thought. I was hoping to keep it under 20 minutes, but of course I didn't. But I hope you enjoyed that, and thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. I'll see you next time.